Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China, and I'm Jerry. Today I'm going to talk about the recent resurgence of COVID in China, but I'm not going to be discussing the rights and the wrongs and offer opinions on what's happening. Simply want to provide you with some perspective and explain how it's affecting people like myself in other cities. It's important to remember that I'm not in Shanghai or one of the other cities that's locked down. But like a lot of places in China, there are some ripples affecting the city where I live, which is called Zhongshan. There are a few frequently asked questions, and I'll try and address some of them here, but please feel free to put some comments in there and ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them over the coming days, particularly as things change and the situations develop in different places. We've been hearing a lot of complaints, and I just wanted to offer some perspective here. Of course, there are a lot of people who aren't happy. Many people are questioning the need for and the scope of the restrictions, but the bottom line is that the number of people who've died in China is low. Of the top 50 COVID-affected countries in the world, only one country, Norway, with a population of just under 5.5 million, has less deaths than China. In perspective, that's just 10% bigger than the city I live in. In terms of population and deaths per 100,000, China doesn't even hit the scale. So let's be clear, what you think about China, the people or the government isn't important. It's very hard to deny that their COVID strategy has been right so far. Currently, 190 million people are in lockdown at the moment in many regions. I think there are 23 towns and cities affected. It's impossible to list them all here, but just think about this for a moment. 190 million people is less than 20% of China's population, and nearly 40 million of them are in just 3 cities, Shanghai, Changchun, and Shenyang. The United Kingdom has 68.5 million people. Australia has 26 million, New Zealand has 5 million, Canada has 38 million. If you add all of them together and 13 of the European Union's smaller countries' populations, all added together, they aren't as many people as are in lockdown right now in China. And I hope that gives you some perspective of the scale of things here. And given that there are only a few constantly repeated complaints being shown on all the international media that I'm watching, it's hardly the dystopian nightmare that foreign media would like us to believe it is. In fact, quite the contrary. It's an amazing exercise in logistic planning with just a few problems. Just this week in Zhongshan, 1 case was found with COVID. It's connected to an outbreak in Guangzhou, which is about 80 kilometers away. So we all had to go off and get another test. Plenty of people are stocking up on food and a few other things just in case we get locked down. But so far, there's been no shortages, no evidence whatsoever of panic buying, just some sensible precautions. Are we able to get food? Well, yes, we can. Here in Zhongshan, there are no restrictions on us going out of our home, but who knows, that could change any day. So this is not all vegetables, is it? We've got some pork steaks and pork mince. So we've got a few kilos of rice, we've got some basic food such as noodles, pasta, some canned food, and we've got enough for several days. We've also got a pretty well-stocked freezer with a range of different meats, and this seemed to me to just make sense. It wasn't much of a big deal. We tend to do that kind of thing anyway. One thing that is different about Zhongshan now is that we need to have a 48-hour nucleic acid test just to go shopping or to catch a bus. It's not that difficult to get one. The city's arranged 2 mass testings in the last week. What happens if we don't get a test? Well, you don't have to. It's not mandatory, but if you don't get a test, you have a QR code on your telephone. That code turns yellow and you can't enter a supermarket, a shopping mall, any government building. You can't get on public transport until you've taken a test and the test is negative. Then your QR code will turn green again. So this policy has actually been a bit of a boon to the delivery guys. Interestingly, it seems to fit quite well with the supermarkets and the shopping centres too. We noticed when shopping on the vegetable section of our local online store, the prices are all fairly consistent, but last week or last month, they started to creep up a little bit, but now they're back to normal. They've stabilized. So I think there was some issues about delivery, about storage, but not anymore. What we've also noticed is the vegetable section are now selling, instead of 250 gram or 500 gram selections of vegetables, they're selling 5 kilo bags. Normally we would buy a pound or a jin, as it's called here, and in China fresh vegetables are very fresh. We get them every day. Now we're given the option of buying 10 pounds and keeping them stored at home. Now this actually makes a lot of sense. It means deliveries don't need to be made so often. That means less people are coming into contact with more people in the shops. And if there does happen to be an outbreak of COVID in the city, that would be much more beneficial. Most of us can stay home. We don't have to go shopping. We have our deliveries made instead of every day. We have them every 2 or 3 days. So I hope this small view of the perspective and the scope of the outbreak in China gives you some thoughts about how the situation really is, not the sensational stuff you're seeing on Western media. It's important we keep that perspective. Again, feel free to leave me a comment, ask a question. I'll do everything I can to answer it for you or find someone who can. And thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.